Into the Wild is a 1996 nonfiction book written by John Krakauer. It is an expansion of his 9,000-word article on Chris McCandless titled Death of an Innocent, which appeared in the January 1993 issue of Outside. It's a good book. It's an interesting book. It was turned into a movie. We're going to dive all into the history of this book and really get into all the crevices of it. If this is your first time with us, we are a book club podcast. We have nothing to do with online betting or gambling. If you've been with us for a while, you know the deal. Like, subscribe. If you have any inkling towards supporting this little podcast, please go to patreon.com/DestinyComics. That's comics, COMIX. Or you can go to destinycomics.weebly.com for our store, where, some of us on this podcast have published some comics, novels of our own. Some of us are, literarily inclined. So any kind of support, please buy one of our books. With that said, if you're listening to this, there's a good chance you're a voracious reader. So maybe you go to patreon.com/DestinyComics, where you can join the Bookmark of the Month Club, where you will get a hand-painted bookmark mailed to you. I think it's a good offer. I really do. $5 a month, you get a hand-painted bookmark sealed in a sleeve. With that said, we're going to jump right into today's episode, Into the Wild.
Laugh has been described as a chuckle.
Right.
The British guy, I know.
Yeah, that one British guy.
Well, there's
British teenager.
If you feel the need to read it,
check it out from the library. I don't
support your local.
Told the parent. No.
Why would you want to kill her in public?
And we are the Bookies. Alright, so...
Sorry, the moment you start talking about it, say it.
So, alright, this is the annual meeting of the Midnight Society.
Say Wendy on it.
Because my friend Wendy made it. Yes, today I am Wendy. Thank you very much.
Right.
And Wendy likes a Trinity pumpkin cream cold brew.
Well, Wendy, are you okay? It sounds like you got a cold coming on.
I'm Emma Stone, okay? It's fine. It happens.
Fine.
My friend was...
Cat's sneezing. That cat does not sneeze once. She sneezes at least 8 times. When she sneezes. But you'll just hear, you're like...
She's allergic to Brandon.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Brandon, you make
If a person does that, I'll say bless you the first time, and the rest of the times, Alyssa, you only get one.
Uh-huh.
I don't care.
Right?
I say it 3 times, and then if they do a 4th time, I say, okay, stop, now you're milking.
So, a little over a year ago when I was teaching art, and I was doing a video, I'd recorded several videos on how to do, we were going through Zentangles, and I was doing the designs. And the end of one of them, just as I'm finishing, she sneezes. Over the last 10 seconds of the video that I'm working on, there's a cat sneezing. So then when I'm showing the video systems, I'm like, that was the cat. She was sneezing. She's weird.
I bet she held it as long as she could.
I'm like, yeah. That cat just doesn't know how to sneeze. She sneezes a million times. It's okay.
She held it in as long as she could.
Alright, we are the Bookies.
Which is apparently not a sports betting podcast.
And we are not a sports betting podcast. No.
We read books. Talk about them.
I'm Brandon Noel.
Justin Stallard.
Bonnie Stallard.
Wayne Abraham. David McFarland.
Luis Lopez.
Maylene Noel.
And we're the Bookies this month. We are reading Into the Wild by John
Krakauer.
John
Krakauer.
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 Johnny Cracker.
By Jimmy Krakauer.
Johnny doesn't care. Oh.
Jay
Lewis,
Kraken.
this was your pick.
Some would say this was my curse that I inflicted upon them.
Want to give a
Say that 5 times, and all of a sudden I'm the one that gets called out.
You want to give a quick overview on why you put this in the TARDIS?
Yeah, this was a book that I had read before, probably like 12 years ago now. It's by the author John Krakauer, who I was first exposed to by reading Into Thin Air, which is, they're both nonfiction. I think he mostly does nonfiction as a journalist. Into Thin Air is about one of the many disasters that happened on Mount Everest when a group of very inexperienced and ill-prepared mountaineers, quote, went up there and I think largely died.
I'm sensing a theme in your taste in books.
I didn't write these books.
This is what he specializes in.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing.
So cheery.
This book, Into the Wild, it's about a bunch of different things, one of which, the main thing is that this young 23, 24-year-old Christopher Johnson McCandless, after graduating college, basically donated about almost $25,000 in his life savings to the charity Oxfam, left, I think it was Annandale, West Virginia, didn't tell his family, didn't tell his friends, and kind of just chose to voluntarily become homeless and travel across the country. He used rail, he used his car for a little bit, mostly he walked and hitchhiked. And eventually, his end goal was to go up to Alaska to a place called the Stampede Trail, which is largely frequented by hunters, but mostly impassable for large portions of the year. And he wanted to live out his Thoreauian, Emersonian fantasy of trying to make it on his own and find some transcendental truth about the world and his place in it. And unfortunately, he did not survive that journey. Now, that's not a spoiler because basically the book starts that way. You know that going into it. So the book is about what he was thinking and feeling along the way. It's about his journey. It's about what he wanted to accomplish by doing the thing. And part of the reason that I picked this book was because a lot of the discourse that I've seen surrounding it focuses more on the good things about what he wanted to do and how you should try to aspire to do those things too, but don't focus on the very real fact that he died in trying to do the thing because he wasn't prepared. And so I felt like that was one of the things that would be very fascinating to talk about with this book.
So be like him, only better.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
It's not a bad takeaway.
yeah.
So,
But we'll talk about what you liked about the book, so then everybody else can bag on it.
we'll talk about the
I mean,
positives.
Oh, I'm the only one that liked it?
No.
Okay, awesome.
Well, I also liked it, actually.
Yeah, I liked it.
There were some good things. I'm not saying it was all bad. So. Sorry, I don't mean to bag on it, but I love it.
So yeah, the book is about Chris McCandless, but it's also about John Krakauer and his reporting on the story. Because originally this thing was an essay that came out in Outside Magazine in like '93, I want to say, and it was much shorter at that time. And eventually, enough people that had known Chris along the way kind of contacted John, or he reached out to them, etc., and ended up expanding this into a book. It's not a very long book, to be honest. It's only like 200-something pages.
It's 7.5 hours on Audible.
Yeah, and that's with and afterward. So
And a
I
forward.
want to say it was like
Yeah, I didn't even
215.
understand that at all.
yeah, it's a fairly quick read. When I was first doing my high school English literature classes, one of the things that was hammered into us by the teacher at the time was the merits of transcendentalism and trying to better yourself by detaching from material things and trying to find a higher truth of the world. And to an extent, I still have some of that in terms of like my mentality, but to be honest, I would not have done what McCandless did in the way that he did it. No way. Absolutely no way. And I'm not trying to disparage the guy, I'm not trying to speak ill of him, but God, he was unprepared for what happened.
That's a bad
Thing. I think.
Positive.
No,
Let's talk about
Yeah.
a good
No, you're
thing.
right, you're right. Good thing.
We'll get there. We'll
Trust
get
me.
there.
You will
Alaska's
get
pretty.
Alaska's pretty.
No, I can see a lot of my younger self in the descriptions of McCandless. Like I was saying, I too want to try to better myself, and I love the idea of going on these journeys, even at a moment's notice, just to kind of escape from like the toils and tribulations of society. Like it's a good thing to want to experience the world in the way that he wanted to, but not in the way that he did. So I can see a lot of myself, younger me, in him.
There's that quote from Man of La Mancha, to see the world as it should be versus as it is.
Yeah. McCandless's idealism and his aspirations are good things. In this case, they happen to, not coincide with a whole lot of practicality or common sense, but what he wanted and what he wanted to experience were good. I also feel like this wasn't it wasn't a hard book to get through in terms of the reading. Like it was very frank, it was very matter of fact, and even when it does wax philosophical on some of the things that McCandless wants, it still has a backbone in the practicality from the author, Krakauer himself.
I liked the author.
Yeah.
Like I found myself like really enjoying his take on the thing, and I understand what it's like to get obsessed with a story.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Yep. That's my likes, I think, for right now.
Eileen, what'd you like about it?
One like.
Oh,
Well, I will agree that it was an easy read. Because I did that thing where I looked through, okay, how many pages today? Okay, I gotta read this many pages per day if I'm gonna get it through it by. Not that I expected it to take too long, but I figured what's the bare minimum if I'm gonna.
She schedules out her reading
If
time.
life gets hectic or whatever, how many do I need to read per day to make sure I stay on track? And I think it came out by the time I started reading the book, it came out to something about 10 pages a day. So not too bad. Yeah, and because it really did flow, I actually end up reading 20 pages most days. So I was like, okay.
You're welcome.
I usually do like a chapter.
Oh, yeah. I have done that too, where I've broken it down per chapter. So yeah, it wasn't that difficult to get through.
She could have got through it sooner if I didn't come. She'd go to the bedroom to read.
And she'd come in and be like, hey, by the way, wrestling. And I'm like, I just sat down. I have a book in my hand. I love you. We've had 3 hours since I got home to talk. And the moment I sit down to read, that's when you decide we're going to talk and bond. Okay, fine.
I'd be like, go away.
Purposefully?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Cork bottle.
No. This is my reading time.
You roll up a newspaper.
Hit him on the nose. Bad Brandon. Back to the office.
Stop it.
So yeah, it was definitely easy for me to, look down and blink an eye, be like, oh, 20 pages, cool. I had a schedule, so I ended up reading it, I want to say, in about a week, give or take, which is pretty fast for me. I'm definitely one of the slower readers. Does not take me, I have never in my entire adult life read a book in like a day. That's not even feasible for me.
The only person I know who's done it is Wayne.
Well, and I think Bonnie's done it. Haven't you done Bonnie?
I'm sorry.
Killed a book in a day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I read the last Harry Potter in 24 hours.
Yeah. That is not even a possibility unless you're talking about a book that's A, under 100 pages, and B, big letters. That's the only way I'm getting through any book in
I'll
a
let
day.
you borrow Don Quixote.
The fastest books I've ever read were the Dresden Files books, and even then, that's not that fast.
Yeah.
No.
So anytime I can read any book that's a couple hundred pages in a week or less, it's either really amazing or I force myself to sit down and read through.
So this was the former, yeah? It was super amazing. Loved it.
It was easy. I'll say that.
No, it wasn't easy for me.
And there were. I did feel like he gave me a good description of what, or a more realistic expectation of the Alaskan wilderness, because I know we'll talk about this in the negatives, but a lot of people do romanticize that whole lifestyle of living off the land and, you know, I'm going to do this, that, and survive the winter out here. And a lot of that comes from, as you mentioned in the book, what was his name?
Jack London.
Jack London.
Jack London.
A lot of those stories, they just romanticize it, and they talk about all the, you know, oh my gosh, we survived, we persevered. These are all the cool things about, you know, and so I like that this guy was like, okay, some more things you should know about the Alaskan wilderness is it can be a harsh bitch sometimes, you know, so.
I think Krakauer mentions that specifically in regards to London.
He only visited Alaska once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
summer or something.
Yeah. It's like, okay, come on. I was like, okay, let's you know, be realistic about the harsh atmosphere, the harsh environment that can possibly exist.
And the author did point out that Jack London was writing fiction.
Yes, yes.
Very
He was
important
not the field
distinction.
guide
Yeah.
to Alaskan tramping. I don't know.
She's super trapping. Yeah.
Oh God.
So that's, yeah, I'm gonna pass
Alright.
on to you, Brent.
Positives. I was going to mention the afterward, but I think Wayne wanted to talk about that.
Go ahead.
Instead, because I'm going to talk about, because we'll hit it when Wayne gets there. John Worcestershire.
John Krakauer.
John Krakauer.
Jimmy Crackhorn.
Jimmy
You can say it, it's fine.
I don't care.
Like, you can tell from the organic way that this book happened, he got really obsessed with this guy's life and this story. To the point to where he's tracking down video archive, he's talking to people who he met along the road, he's recreating the routes, he's, you know, like, I know what it's like to get that obsessed with a story. From that aspect, I fell in love with the book.
Yeah.
Like, the main character, I don't want to say main character because he was a real human.
Yeah.
I have serious problems with Chris and what he did.
Isn't that a negative?
Well, we'll get there. I'm just saying, but the way John became obsessed with him and the ideals, and, you know, like the writing was so poetic at times.
I feel like we've all been there. Like, we've all had either that subject or that real life person that we've all been like, oh my God, this person was so amazing and we become obsessed with those people, whether it's historical figures, celebrity, whatever, you know. I feel like there are.
Like, I can easily get obsessed with any number of cartoonists and spend years reading biographies and interviews and I have on, you know, some of those guys. But I could definitely tell, like, this book happened organically through his obsession and through people contacting him, like, hey, I knew, you know. So you got all these testimonials coming in, and I felt that part of the story was interesting.
And we're given to understand that the brief moments that McCandless had with the people that he encountered on the road were so impactful to many of them that they still were able to clearly recall him, his face, his words, the way he spoke, his mannerisms, his intelligence.
Super charismatic.
Yeah. Yeah, at one point,
Really likable.
Ron Franz, one of the 80-year-old man that McCandless encountered for a while, Franz, when McCandless was going up to Alaska, he says that he prayed to God to take care of Chris McCandless because, quote, that boy was special, you know?
And he
Special ed.
He renounced
his religion.
Yeah. When
When
McCandless,
McCandless
when he
died.
found out McCandless died, he became an atheist, and he was devoutly Christian before.
Yeah, because there's no God that would let that man die the way he did.
Yeah.
So, like, there's, you know, everybody who met Chris has a Chris story. It's even the manager from McDonald's who's like, I had to tell this boy to take a bath. You know, like, you know, the term that gets thrown around a couple times in the book describing Chris is moral absolutism. And we both get to see the benefits and the folly of that line of thinking. but from the objective of the writer, like I fell in love with his obsession.
Yeah.
Justin likes.
Well, I liked the book in general. It was well done. It was well presented. One of the things I really enjoyed was his descriptions of the geography. One of the things about that is one of the areas where he frequented in Bullhead and Diamond, the Diamond Temple Bar, and the Detrital Valley is. I grew up in the Detrital Valley in Arizona, and in 1990 I was a freshman in high school, and there's the very good chance that we may have given him a ride as a hitchhiker at one time or another.
Because they gave hitchhikers rides.
We gave hitchhikers rides all the time. My grandparents were always bringing, well, not my grandparents themselves, but my family would bring home strays, and Grandma and Grandpa would feed them, and then they'd go on their way. So there's a very good chance that we may have crossed paths.
You could have seen him and not known it, yeah.
Yeah, with him at the time. We just didn't have enough contact with him. And, in Bullhead City, we'd go to Bullhead City to do shopping sometimes and stuff. So I found it interesting that, that aspect of his journey.
He even came to Santa Sentinel at one point, or Santa Sentinel Mountain.
Yeah, the tram.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
We did that on
tram,
our honeymoon.
I'm too afraid of heights. I could never go up that thing.
I did that
I had to
once.
sit down and close my eyes.
Well, the
It's
tram
beautiful,
now
dude.
rotates as you go.
Yes.
So everybody can get a view.
I don't want the view. I just want to get up there.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, in Palm Springs, there is a cable car tram that goes all the way to the top of the Santa Sentinel Mountain. If you want to see what it looks like, there's actually an episode of Columbo that ends in the tram.
Yes.
As someone not afraid of heights, it's fucking
so
beautiful.
gorgeous.
there.
I've never done it, but I want to do it.
You go
I
up
think it only costs like $20.
from
It's like just outside of Palm Springs. I
outside
wanna
of
say,
Palm
like at the
Springs,
foothills.
but you're like 3,500, 4,000 feet,
Something like
and
that.
you go up in the course of 15 minutes. You go up to 14,000 feet.
Yeah, it's high enough that there's snow up there, right?
There's
Yeah.
snow up there. Yeah.
There used to be a restaurant at the top. I don't know if they're
Oh,
still
still
there.
there.
Still there.
It's still
Still
there.
there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was
Yeah.
up there in 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was up there like as a child because that was the only way I was getting on that thing. No, I'm afraid of heights. My feet stay on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Palm Springs elevation is, I don't recall what it was, but up the tram at the top of the restaurant, it goes up to like 80 something, 8,800 feet.
Hmm.
And then I hiked it all the way to the peak, which is 10,000 feet.
Yeah, that's a you trip, David. I don't do well with heights.
Well, once you get up there, it's
You're on the ground.
Yeah,
You're on a
but-
mountain.
yeah.
My dad and one of his good teacher buddies would often, sometimes like 3, maybe 4 times a year, one of the wives would drop them off at Humber Park in Idlewild, and they would hike up the backside to the tram, and then they would ride the tram down to the bottom, and the other wife would pick them up at the station, because back then
You didn't need to pay to get down.
you didn't need to
It's
pay
free
to go down. They figured if you're up there, you rode the tram or you hiked, and the tickets were round trip from the bottom.
So you could just write it.
So they would
now it's a
hike up.
half charge.
half charge.
Yeah, now they charge you half price to go down. But back then, so they did that 3 or 4 times every year.
You would have gotten dizzy and fallen from
Oh,
the top of Mount Fuji.
yeah, no, thank you.
This past July, I went up. I went to Japan for a vacation, and I climbed to the top of Mount Fuji, and it was fucking amazing. But those views at that height are like dizzying. Like if you just leaned over a little bit too far, you would fall down the mountain and die flat out.
Ugh.
Because you probably had, what do they call it?
Vertigo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get vertigo.
No, they call it, what do they call it?
From
Altitude sickness.
Oh, yeah.
Hypoxia.
Yeah. It's altitude sickness.
The
'Cause I got altitude sickness going to the peak.
last time I actually went up there, that's back when I was still teaching before I retired, went up with a couple of friends, and from the tram station there's this ramp that's about block and a half, and then takes you down to the level spot where the trails go in 4 or 5 directions, and there's the little ranger shack there where you sign in where you're planning to hike to. We just walked to the bottom, and on the way back up, I got altitude sickness on that trip. So that's the last time I went up. But it took me almost 20 minutes to go from the bottom of the ramp up to the top. And it's got this metal rail, though, and I was holding on to the rail and doing this hand over hand, blowing myself up.
Whew.
Man.
Anyway, sorry.
Justin, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all right. Another section of the book that I enjoyed was the where Krakauer was talking about his adventures of climbing
The Devil's
Yeah,
Thumb.
I really liked that.
and I really
It's probably
enjoyed
my
that,
favorite chapters.
especially the point where he got stoned and set the tent on fire. It was hilarious. And,
It's only hilarious because he survived.
yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, it would have been tragic.
Yeah.
But, tragically hilarious.
Celebrated author John Krakauer was a dumbass and died.
While researching another dumbass.
I do like
Well, no,
the
that
fact
was when he was younger.
that,
before
you know,
he was-
Yeah.
I love the fact that when he's telling all the townspeople, who cares? Everybody's done it.
He was like,
Yeah,
whatever.
so
And
what?
he's like, for him, it's this, you
like
know,
Transcendental.
gosh,
I've been
pinnacle
out
of
here
my
for
existence.
6 weeks. And
no one
No
cared.
one
Nobody cared.
cares.
I've been out here climbing this thing for 6 weeks. And
They're like,
nobody-
so?
Makes you think of Scrubs. Nobody cares, Sean.
I didn't know David lived up there.
Right?
So
Oh, God.
Bonnie.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that. When he starts getting down into his, like, for a while I was like, okay, we're rehashing and I was like, okay, but I really liked his trip up to the Devil's Thumb. I enjoyed that. There's actually just a couple lines here in chapter 15. It is easy when you are young to believe that what you desire is no less than what you deserve, to assume that if you want something badly enough, it's your God-given right to have it. And page 150.
That line hit me hard last night.
It was big.
Yeah.
I have an adult nephew that describes perfectly about certain things, but it's true.
Mhm.
There's so much of, I didn't hate Chris. I didn't get completely fed up with him. Like, I know people were going to share they did. Did I agree with all his viewpoints and things? No, but I've seen and I've known so many, I'm like, okay, I'm older now. I'm in my 40s, but back in my 20s in college, like, that could describe any of the guys I went to college with.
Mm-hmm.
Some more than others, but when we're young, we think we're invincible. Death is this abstract thing that happens to old people.
Yeah.
And
when a lot of younger people don't realize you're lucky if you make it to old, to
right,
be an old person,
right.
And
unless you live some life with certain, viewpoints, it's easy to just think, oh, I'm young. I got all this ahead of me, blah, 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 and to be a little foolhardy. And the thing is, looking at this book with our older, mature, and wiser eyes, it's easy for us to scoff and judge when it's like, yeah, but do you remember what you were like when you were 23?
Mm-hmm. I wasn't dying into the forest.
No, you weren't, but were you making the best choices in your life?
Yes.
No. I've heard some of the stories you've told me, David.
Unfortunately, some of my mistakes are on tape.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm just saying, like, you know, we all did stupid stuff in our 20s. Some more than others, obviously, but you know, it's so. But I enjoyed, I enjoyed the read. I enjoyed his take on things. You know, it was kind of. I didn't, because we knew what was going to happen. I didn't expect to feel any sort of sadness at the very end. But you know, when his mom, you know, how it affected her, I was like, oh. I felt a little something there, you know. Like, I mean, I didn't cry or anything. There's books that made me cry. This was not one of them. But I was like, oh yeah, I didn't expect to have that little moment.
I'm a major weeper.
You know?
I too.
I am too.
Yeah.
I cry any strong emotion and it comes out in tears, which is really bad when you're trying to argue with someone.
Oh, I know it.
But
It's unfair.
The ending of this book is not a surprise. Like, we know
it's
coming
not.
from a
It's
mile
not,
away,
and
but
the way he chose to end it there with that moment.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was, you know, it was touching, and
his mom is
know.
sitting there in one
Where
of the
he
last
died.
places that he was alive.
Yeah.
And you know, they didn't know where he was, and she
For
had
years.
this bittersweet moment because their relationship with McCandless was not great, him and his parents, but you still get the sense that, like, they're still parents. They still
loved him. Yeah,
you know?
they loved him very much.
Yeah.
He just wasn't at a point where he was mature enough to forgive them for their past.
Yeah.
Or even talk to them about it.
Yeah.
So,
But that kind of,
you know,
of sharp idealism is extremely evident of both, you know, 20-somethings and this transcendental escapism.
yeah, right. So, but I did enjoy the book, and I enjoyed some of, you know, his descriptions of things, and the fact that he really, I mean, yeah, he was kind of obsessed, but he really took the time to find out the information and to, you know, put out correct information.
He did the work.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
even to the point of having the seeds tested, because, you know, and all that on the potatoes, the wild potatoes.
I wouldn't have done that.
He went
He
far
went-
and
yeah.
above, you know. So, you know, I appreciated all that he put into it, and yeah, okay. Positives, Wayne.
I'm positive for the most part. I enjoyed this book.
Okay, what did you enjoy about it, Dad?
I could identify with Chris in a lot of levels
Oh, I'm sure.
because we did a lot of camping. When I was growing up, we spent time out in the woods, out in the forests, and so it's like, you know, I could understand a lot of the whys, wherefores, it being drawn to nature, that kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah, camping's great.
You know,
I need
he
more
wasn't-
comfortable sleeping
he wasn't
arrangements now
prepped.
than I did when I was little, but
prepped for where he went.
no, he was not.
But he thought he was. I really enjoyed chapters 14 and 15, where the author shares his
Climb of the thumb.
climb of the devil's thumb.
Yeah,
That was all right.
That was
In chapter 14, he starts it off with I think it was the postcard to the electrician that gave him a ride, gave Chris a ride up the Stampede Trail. This adventure proves fatal, and you don't ever hear from me again. I want you to know you're a great man. I now walk into the wild.
Oh, was it? Yeah, that was his friend
No,
Matt
that-
down in South Dakota.
South
Oh, it's-
Dakota, yeah.
Yeah.
In South Dakota,
Yeah.
okay. But, you know, the author shares this adventure where he sets out to solo climb the north face of the Devil's Thumb that nobody's ever done before.
He didn't do it either, but he did climb to the thumb.
He, you know, and he's using ice axes, which require ice to climb, and he got about 700 feet up and the ice vanished, and they don't work on rock.
No, they do.
Sure enough, don't.
And so he had to stop and admit defeat. And then chapter 15 covers his descent and return to civilization, as well in there is an analysis of the author's relationship with his dad. So, you know, that draw to solo climb the thumb, his anger with his father, those were very similar to what Chris experienced.
And he acknowledged that.
And he acknowledged that. Unlike Chris, John reached a place where he was able to forgive his father and release the anger. But these two chapters really show well why he felt such a kinship and was drawn to his story.
Yeah.
You know.
But for the grace of God go I.
Yeah, exactly, you know.
We're given to understand that McCandless's mindset towards his parents, and perhaps this would have changed had he lived, was that he wanted to simply just erase them from his life completely and never speak to them again.
Right,
Which-
but he never told them why.
Yeah.
You know,
He didn't
never talked to them
communicate
about
his
that.
feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, but you need to at least, like, dude, tell
Yeah.
you know, okay, have a big argument, have it out, but
Yeah.
get it out there, don't internalize it.
Yeah, had he survived, things might have turned out differently.
He might have got to a point where he forgave his dad for his
Yeah.
transgressions when he was young. You know.
Yeah, I mean, part of those things happened back when his dad was young and foolish.
Yeah.
And around the same age as Chris at this point, being young and foolish,
Yeah.
you know? And so, but he
Never
wasn't
got the chance to.
able
live through
to see that and recognize it.
Yeah.
But and the afterward at the end of the first book, they did some tests on these wild potatoes and on the seeds.
Well, the first of, you mean at the end of the book?
End of the book, yeah. The author was having them tested looking for a particular chemical, and they couldn't find it. And between the time that of the first publishing
And now.
and the second publishing, which we are reading now, he had guys research, and they actually located the substance that was toxic in the seeds, and it attacks the nervous system, and it creates weakness, it creates difficulty walking, to an inability to walk, and we see those symptoms in his writing. So but people didn't realize these were toxic. The roots, the Indians had survived on them for years. So, and in that afterwards, he was going into the research. Okay, we thought it was this, and that compound doesn't even exist in there. And so then we thought, well, there's this other one that's kind of like that, and maybe that's it. And no, it wasn't. And it wasn't until they did some more research and they found what it was. So if he hadn't have been eating those seeds, he would have survived. He would have survived. He would have still been there when the moose hunters showed up.
Only 4 weeks later, he would have been malnourished, and because but at that point when he was sick, he was getting game. It was small game, but he was still getting game. He would have survived 4 more weeks if it hadn't been for those seeds. Yeah.
And he had been eating the seeds in such a high volume that even if the amount of poison was relatively low in a seed, he still
it was the primary part of his diet.
Yeah, I think the book mentions that he found like an entire bucket's worth of them in about 30 minutes, and we're given to understand that that's what he was eating.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. David, what did you like about the book? Likes this right now. Likes.
I actually liked the book. I liked.
You've been ranting about it for weeks. You liked it.
Let the man speak.
Yeah, I liked the book. So far, I like how the story describes the journey of Chris. I liked how they described it. I just don't like Chris. I thought John did a really good job describing what not to do with your life. And what I thought was cool, there was a part where they went through Anza Borrego.
Yeah.
I've been through there, and
Me too.
Let me see. Yeah, been through Anza Borrego several times while geocaching. Nothing out there but mountains and desert sand. Why anyone would want to live out there is beyond me. I wouldn't take land out there if it was given to you for free.
Jesus.
But I have fond memories with my friend Dennis going geocaching and benchmark hunting out there.
It's a
Salton
nice
Sea,
place
too.
to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah.
No, hell no. I've been out there and I'm like, why would you want to live out there? I wouldn't take that land if they gave it to you for free.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I like Chris's letter to Ron on page 56. It's basically how he was telling Ron. Remember, it was the religious guy out in the desert.
Yeah.
About how you should go out and just do stuff. But I didn't like the part where you, in my opinion, you didn't really need to abandon your life to go out and do it.
But encouraging him to get out and do more things was good.
Yeah, and that's what
Yeah.
he did. He went and lived with the bums, which I'm like, no, I don't really.
He made his own little campsite.
Yeah. I just like the fact that he took his advice and actually like stepped out of his comfort zone and went and did something.
Yeah. Especially at his age.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
If you want to get more out of life, Ron, you must lose your inclination for monotonous security and adopt a helter-skelter style of life that will at first appear to you to be crazy.
Yeah.
There's that idealism.
Did he not read Helter Skelter? That doesn't end well.
Okay. Yeah, there's the Salton City clerk agreed that people living in the oh my god hot springs are just bums.
Yeah.
They're just bums. I like the fact that Chris.
We've been to the Salton Sea.
I've been there several times.
Never been there.
Didn't we go there?
I mean, I'm not going to go because I got pages and pages of
Looked at it
notes.
from the lookout.
But
Slab City.
Yeah, I've been out to Slab City.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it used to be a city out there until I don't recall when. I think it was part of an old military base. Way back in the day, and then it was just abandoned, and all the concrete foundations for the slabs were still out there. And since no one's really taking ownership of the area, they just kind of left it kind of like a out in the wild thing, and people are just living out there for free on a stone slab. But I like how Chris wanted to go out and do what he wanted to do. I just did not approve of the way that he was doing it. I mean, especially, I'll get to the negatives, but I like how he wanted to go out and do what he did, and I'll leave it at that for until we get to the negative. I did like John's other little stories, how he's talking about other hikers or other
Some other
survivalists.
people, yeah.
Because John Muir, I read a lot about him, but I didn't know the dude was a crazy guy. Because John Muir, I've been on the John Muir Trail on there because that trail was named after him. And then I liked his climb up the Devil's Thumb. I never would have done that. No. I would have gone maybe up a trail up to the top. Would I be climbing up the side? No.
No.
I'm not that
Gung-ho.
out in the wild kind of thing. Yeah, mine is maybe hiking up a trail, but blazing my own trail, forget it. I'm not going to be doing that. There was something else in here that I want to say. Oh yeah. I even circled it in my notes. I like the fact that Chris made fun of Joe Biden in the late 1980s. He hated him back then, and it tells you that Joe Biden was an idiot in the late 1980s.
I chuckled at that too, David. I actually did.
I forgot about that.
He's all over. Chris is all over the place. He's got these lofty ideals, but he's also a Republican. He starts the Republican.
It didn't really matter what political party you followed. I just like the fact that he made fun of Joe Biden. That was freaking 40 years ago that he was an idiot.
You know, I'm just saying, like, the kid is all over the place politically.
Oh yeah.
Like he
Politically and ideally and practically.
Yeah, he you know, he hasn't quite figured it all out yet because he's
you get the impression that he wants so badly to find some grand universal truth of the world, and that it will make him into who he is supposed to be. But the steps that he takes to accomplish that are both recklessly idealistic and just reckless.
Yeah, and even though I didn't understand any of the scientific jargon at the end of the book, I enjoyed the fact that John actually went out and tried to find the cause of death after they figured out that, what was it, his body wasn't taking in the nutrients.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what he was eating, he was just still deteriorating. And I don't know what any of that scientific jargon is, but I like the fact that he found out how he died. I still think Chris was an idiot for going out there, but I thought it was sad how he died.
Yeah.
Because he possibly could have made it.
I agree.
Yeah, you kind of.
Yeah.
If the would have taken into consideration the spring thaw,
We'll get to that in the negatives.
he would have made it. Yeah.
Okay, Lewis.
Oh
negatives?
yeah, I'm done. Yeah, good.
So
Go.
in a way, the negatives are going to be fairly weird to talk about, because as you said, Brandon, this isn't a character, this is a real person who really lived and really died.
So you can't be like, oh, this character was poorly written or whatever for this reason, you know.
Like,
So that means the listener of this podcast will basically going, okay, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that because this guy died.
I guess you could see it as a cautionary tale.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, there's the part of the reason why I read this book before and then suggested it again is because I
You need to remind yourself what not to do.
don't go into the Alaskan wilderness. I've been, like, in the back of my mind, I've been fascinated by McCandless for years now in terms of, like, what he wants to do and what he actually does to get to where he's going. Like, there's a duality at play here within this man's mind. He has such lofty goals and aspirations, but the actual things that he does really speak to someone who didn't fully research what he wanted to do. He just went and did it. And that's, to my mind, that's so dangerous, but I can see why he would just do it. Like, if I get into my head to leave the apartment to go run errands or whatever, like, I just kind of want to go and get it done, and then it's in the back of my mind, and I can just focus on whatever. Like,
Yeah, that's a lot different than pushing your boat through a swamp in Mexico.
yes, that is something I would never have ever done. Oh my God!
I'll say here's a difference though. If you fail to plan too far ahead, maybe you forget your wallet at home.
Yeah.
Go back and get it.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
This is a completely different situation of need to plan ahead.
Yeah.
I'm gonna burn my wallet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I could see myself getting the idea to crisscross the country for a bit and maybe hike in Alaska, but not in the way that McCandless did it. And again, he's a real person. It's weird to criticize, but for fuck's sake, man, tell your parents or your friends what you're doing.
Well, he told some of his friends.
But like even his sister Kareen, who were we understand
They're
that.
supposed to be close to.
Yeah, he's
But
supposed to be close to. Yeah.
And she said she understood why he never contacted her, because he knew and she agreed that their parents would find out and they'd go track him down. And he didn't want his parents involved.
I mean, someone
I would
needs
love
to know
have
where you
parents like
are.
that.
I know.
Well,
He wasn't at that point.
Who cares? He should be slapped upside the head.
we'll talk about that.
I feel like a lot of it was simple impatience on his part. Some of that was that he was super young, but some of it was just him choosing to disregard things. Like when he, at first he starts his journey by driving his Datsun, and he drives it into like a wash or like a gully or something.
Yeah, idiot.
And eventually a flash flood happens and it rains and it floods the car and it doesn't start. And the book tells us that had he been more patient and not tried to start it repeatedly and drain the
Let the
battery,
car
he could have
dry
driven
out.
it out because
He could
the
have
car
driven it out.
was reliable.
Yeah,
I think
he
it was
loved that car
Yeah,
too.
I think it was the National Park Service
Mhm.
found the car later.
Yeah.
They used it for years as a drug bust
it's-
car.
Yeah, it survived like 5 or 6 more years because it was
Mhm.
super reliable. But when McCandless abandons it, he leaves a note stating, like, if you find this piece of shit. That's what he calls it, a piece of shit.
I know,
but
after he loved it. That I found so discongruous.
Yeah.
I was so...
Like
That made me mad. I'm like, what? Like, you know,
that's
no.
the duality that I'm talking about. He
Yeah.
has these ambitions, but then if something doesn't go his way,
He has a temper.
he abandons it.
Yeah, he's like, oh, well, I don't like this. F this.
Yeah, like had he been just a little bit more patient, he would have realized it's probably not a good idea to burn all the money in your wallets.
Right?
Save some of it, even if you don't want to use it. Like, you might end up in the hospital or something. You might be bitten by a fucking rattlesnake. Like,
Oh, but no, he's not going to get harmed at all because he's
No.
young and he'll
yeah,
never die.
that was the other part of it too. When he near the beginning of the book, he's talking to the trucker that drops him off near Fairbanks, I think, and the trucker's giving him very valid reasons for why he should not do what he's doing, and
He's like, "Dur-dur-dur, I know what I'm doing."
he basically brushes aside the valid concerns and criticisms for what his actions could, befall him.
Right, but
as
it
I'll
shows
be
that he
fine."
did that his whole life.
Yeah, and some of that is like,
I think something's wrong up here for that. Like there's some sort of, like deficiency of some kind,
Yeah,
some personality
a
disorder or
disconnect.
something. There's something wrong when,
he
yeah.
he must have come from such a place of privilege that the idea that disaster could happen just never really was a genuine concern of his.
No.
The dude
wasn't.
needed to be humbled.
Yeah.
Humbled
So
badly.
bad. In
Yeah,
such
the
a bad
word
way.
hubris was thrown around a lot.
That kid needed his ass beat.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
I don't care how. He needed to be humbled, and in a serious way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
he was.
Well,
He just
but
didn't survive it.
Oh well.
if he had been humbled before, then I bet he would have found some way to
Yeah.
survive.
You would have thought the trip in the canoe would have done it. You would have thought.
No, if anything, that steeled him further.
Like, oh, I can.
Because I
do
survived
that.
this, I'll survive anything. Oh,
Yep.
my God.
Yep.
At one point, the book mentions that he talks to a person here and there about wanting to write his own book about his travels, and that coupled with him taking on a fairly wild pseudonym of Alexander Supertramp kind of made me think that he's doing this partly to find some universal truth, but also partly so that he can tell people about it and almost kind of brag about it. Like, I don't think he took what happened seriously, and he should have.
Mhm. Like, I would have loved to have read his adventures from his perspective.
Oh, me too. Yeah, absolutely.
Like that book that we're never going to get would have been incredibly interesting.
It would have, yeah. But the whole time you'd be thinking, what is wrong with you? Why would you do this?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, that was really the only thing that I didn't like about the book. But it's not even the content; it's what actually happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I get to go. Ooh.
Your list.
Drive the bus.
I really only have 2 main issues with this book. The first one is, hell yes, dumbass. Okay, grade A. I know we've talked about it and we've all touched on various aspects of why, and don't get me wrong, okay, I understand he was young. I understand, like what you talked about, when you're young, you don't think about death as being an actual, oh, I could die tomorrow if I do something stupid,
Right.
No one thinks about that stuff unless, like, you're that goth kid who actually thinks about it 24 hours a day. But, I mean, like, it's not something that even now in my 30s, coming on my late 30s, it's not even a thought that, like, okay, I know death is a thing, but I still am not thinking about it as being an imminent thing. And this guy was even younger, right? So I get that. I totally understand the whole get up and, like, being impatient. But even at 23, 24, however old he was, I remember thinking, okay, if I'm going to do something that is potentially dangerous, I need to know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I need to have people know where I am. It doesn't have to be my parents. In this case, it didn't have to be his parents. It could have been, like,
Yeah, if you're close enough to your parents, you would have told
No,
them.
I would have, but
yeah.
I'm talking for him. It didn't have to be his parents. He needed someone who could say, okay, I haven't heard from him since this date. I'm getting worried. I'm either going to go out looking for him, or I'm going to get people who know what they're doing to go look out for him. You know what I mean? Just to make sure he's okay. And then if he's okay, cool, we'll leave him alone, you know? So I understand that, but at the same time, it's like, oh, God, kid, like, it gave me such cringe through the entire book. Anytime it's like, okay, you thought this stuff through, but did you think this part through? And the bit with the car frustrated me to no end.
Yeah.
Because I just could not believe that he would leave the car there after 2 seconds of trying to get to work because he drained the battery. Something that he loved, to the point where when he was offered another car,
a brand
new car from his dad, he yelled at his, I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, even if you don't want the car, even if you're set on keeping the car that you love, thanks, Dad, for the thought, like, but no thanks. Like, did you have to be that much of a dick to, I get it, you had contentions with your dad, not everyone gets along with their parents, I understand that, but this in itself was a good gesture. You know, it's like, you could have at least said, no thanks, Dad, I appreciate the thought, but no, I don't want it.
Or at the very least, it seems like when he abandons the Datsun in the desert, it almost feels like he's choosing to betray the thing that he loved.
Right. Like, almost to the point where I kind of with you, but like, it must have been something going on up here. Like, because he, everything, even the thing he claimed to love the most,
the only thing he abandoned more than that car was the dog that he didn't take with him on his trip. And I agree with his sister. It would have been better if he'd had the dog.
Because he probably
wouldn't have risked the dog.
Yeah.
Because he cared about the dog.
And he was willing to risk himself, but
not the dog.
That was the
would
thing
he put other people in harm's way?
I almost felt like he didn't, like, almost like he had a death wish. To the point where it's like, he thought he was going to survive, but he maybe kind of had a little bit of a death wish, at least. Maybe he wasn't going to take steps to do anything about it, but...
If I die, I die.
Yeah, like... Whatever.
What do we say to the god of death? Not today.
But, and I don't know, just like
the point about the dog is fascinating because it brings up the one of the things that we can forget about easily when it comes to McCandless is that there is a core in him of some kind of morality. Like he is a real person who does ultimately, want to not bring harm to others. But like when it comes to himself, it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah. But at the same time, in one portion, if I remember right, he finds out about his father's infidelity. And he's like, okay, I'm going to play the dutiful son. I'm going to go to the college. I'm going to do all this. And then I'm just going to screw you.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, that's pretty jacked up.
Yeah.
Because
really vindictive
because even back then college was not cheap.
Yeah.
And his parents spent however much it was to send him to college, and he was a good student and all that, and he played the dutiful son and basically purposely wasted his parents' money.
Although he appeared really proud of his grades. He got freaking A's.
Oh, he was very intelligent.
Dean's honor list, I think it said.
Yeah, but I was somebody who was very scholarly. I cared about that kind of thing.
No, it's just the thought, in my opinion, that he went and looked for what happened in the past when it really wasn't any of his business, and then he got mad over it, which was none of his business.
Well, he just went to where he was when he was little because he'd been so little when he was there. I've gone back and visited old places where I used to live because I wanted to see what it looked like, after 10 years or 20 years. So I could see why he'd want to go, going back in the past, but getting mad over something that that doesn't even affect you at all. Well, yes.
This is what it's mentioned in the book I brought up earlier, moral absolutism. He was disappointed his father didn't live up to his ideals.
Yeah. his ideas as the son.
As
Right.
his son.
Yeah. Okay, so your dad fell off the pedestal. You put him on.
Mhm.
It's when John Krakauer talks about the fact that when he's talking about when he was mad at his own father, he's like this person who's been like a god figure in your life has suddenly failed you, and you're more judgmental and you're madder than anyone else would have been as a child to your parent. And so, you know, I could see that, but still, man, he took his vindictiveness really far.
To the point where it makes me think that for all his high morality in all these areas, it also seems like he suffers maybe from narcissistic personality disorder. Because it's like,
because he's right.
a lot of the things, because a lot of things, he's right, and there's no gray area. There's no, oh, well, you know, what do you call it? Extenuating circumstances. And I mean, regardless of what the situation is, it's like, okay, you gotta like pull yourself back here, buddy. Like, nobody's perfect. Not your parents for sure. You're not perfect for sure.
No, I would agree. He's very that's a definite possibility. And one thing about a lot of, because I've known a few real narcissists that, man, they are pieces of work, but they are charismatic.
Oh yeah.
And they can spin a story to make them look good like
Oh, yeah.
no one else.
And McCandless was so
He's
charming.
so good at that. And so I'm
Maxed out on
agree with you
charisma.
that. Yeah.
So yeah.
Very, very possible.
I mean, obviously we'll never know for sure, but it seems like a lot of the signs are there. And it's like maybe that also played into his, I can survive this, you know. Look at the, you know, trip down south. Yeah, I survived that. I can survive anything. Oh, it might be a close call, haha, but you know, I'll figure it out. So
yeah,
that was my main problem. And the other problem that I had was, as much as I enjoyed the writing and I thought the author did a fairly good job, I really feel like even at only 215 pages, a lot of it was padded. Like, you could tell it started out as just an article, and he had to add a whole bunch of stuff to make it book lengths, you know.
I get that.
Like, I feel like there was a lot of extra padding,
padding,
a lot of quotes.
He didn't actually have to talk about any of those other people. I found it kind of interesting.
But
that's they didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
He added that in to stretch it.
Well, he did say that he was going to do that.
Well, no, I know, but I'm just saying, I agree with Maylene. The main point of his story and article could have been a lot shorter. He had to fill it out.
He had to fill it out to make it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I saw where he was.
He did say he was going to do that.
I know.
I saw where he was going, making that connection, making that parallel between his, you know, adventure and what McCandless went through. I just felt like if he was really going to turn it into, like, it would have also made a good, really hour-long documentary. Like, if you filmed it and had video interviews with the family and all that stuff, that would have been cool too, you know. But instead, he went the book route, and which isn't the worst route to go, but I just felt it was a lot of padding for the story.
Well, you know, the book was turned into a major motion picture.
Yeah, but not documentary.
No.
Okay, those are my two main issues. Oh, you could ask Brandon too. As I was reading it, I'd get to a part where something stupid happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, Brandon, did you get? Oh, I'm so pissed off right now. A car? Oh, I don't want a car. I'd walk out of the office. So and he's like, oh, okay. Well, apparently something happens with the car. Okay.
I have two major issues that I want to bring up. One is, we touched on it a little bit. He never acknowledges his place of like how well off his parents set him up. I worked 5 part-time jobs to pay for college. This motherfucker was just given the money to go to college.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was slinging burgers, I was cutting yards.
And that one boss of his from high school was going to pay for him to go to college if he stayed there. But nope,
I remember you working in the cafeteria when we met in college, I think.
Yeah,
I too worked in the school cafeteria at my college.
They broke the rules for me. This is getting off topic, but I love this. They gave me 2 student jobs. I was allowed to work in the bookstore, and I was allowed to work in the cafeteria cooking.
Nice.
They broke the rules for me because I told them if I don't get more hours, I can't afford to stay in school. But I worked 5 part-time jobs to pay for my associate's degree, and this son of a bitch was just, sure, somebody's going to pay the bill for you.
Yeah, go get your bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Oh, but money is evil, says the person who has money.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna burn it.
I'm gonna burn it all, and my wallet, and my ID.
How much money did he give away after his college?
About $25,000.
Yeah,
And he gave it
$25,000.
to
A charity,
a charity
against
versus
hunger.
And then he
irony.
hunger.
It was good that he gave it to charity, that is good, but it was also phenomenally stupid that he did a lot of what he did.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Such a contradiction.
as somebody who had to struggle for college, I was a total CD student because the second I got my C locked in, I had to go work another job to pay for the next textbook. So, like, for somebody who, like, that just, he never acknowledged the benefits that his parents set him up with. So I just wanted to punch him in the face for that.
Yeah.
The other thing was, I'm also a former Boy Scout. I have camped hundreds of times. It says there at one point, if he had a Boy Scout manual,
Boy Scout manual.
he would have survived. And I 100% agree with that
Exactly.
because I still have my manual. It's been a long time since I've gone camping because I prefer indoors these
He's an
days.
indoor cat.
But
You enjoy indoor camping?
I
You built that fort near the couch?
There you go. There you go.
I don't
It's
ever,
a low thread count.
I've slept under the stars with just a sleeping bag. I've done all that.
Yeah, my back can't do that anymore.
I can't do that.
I have to have
Even
an
with the
air mattress.
yoga mat and all that.
Nope, I need
no.
an air mattress. I can't survive.
After the initial article was written in Outside Magazine, one of the reader response mail pieces that was sent in says, quote, "Personally, I see nothing positive at all about Chris McCandless's lifestyle or wilderness doctrine," scolded a correspondent. "Entering the wilderness purposefully ill-prepared and surviving a near-death experience does not make you a better human, it makes you damn lucky."
Yes.
Yep.
Amen.
Yes.
I mean, Jesus. And this person wasn't even involved. They were just responding to the
Yeah.
article.
Right?
The original article.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I agree, whoever wrote that.
he makes a mistake with smoking the meat of the
Because
moose.
that's what you do in South Dakota. Different temperature, different climate, different instances.
I would have made that same mistake because I've been hunting and camping on this coast my whole life.
Right.
You smoke your meat. I would have made that exact same mistake. But if I had a manual or even a topical map, I would have known how to get myself out of there. He purposely put himself in such a dangerous place that it's unforgivable. This motherfucker read how to build a fire, and he still died out in the wilderness.
Yes, but you have to give him props for surviving, 4 months he survived
Yeah,
out there?
100
Living off the
days.
land?
100 days.
Like,
Yeah,
Because he
it,
had proper
and-
shelter.
right, but the thing is, if it hadn't been for those seeds, he would have survived, and we
Yes.
would have got that book that we
Yes.
wish we could have got. This
Right.
all comes down to those
Those
freaking
stupid
poisonous
seeds, yeah.
seeds.
Well, here's the
Okay,
thing.
and but nobody knew they were poisonous, so we can't.
Right. Okay,
know.
nobody knows about the poison seed,
But he would have been able to get out sooner if he'd had the other stuff.
if
yes.
he had the map, if he had known,
Not
3
enough
miles
sooner.
down
He
the
would've
way.
waited until the water weighted down so he could
Or
get
he
out.
would have found
Right.
the
crossing.
cable crossing.
Yeah.
The cable crossing.
I don't think he even had any intention to even go look for such a thing. I think
No.
he was. I remember reading the book saying that, okay, I'll just go back to the way I was, wait for the water level to go down, and then go out.
But if
Right,
you
but
would
by
have
that time,
if you would have had
he
a
was
map
sick.
showing the stuff, you would have had more choice.
Yeah, that's just his.
When you're-
Stupidity.
He took the time to get the book about the edible plants.
Sure, I mean,
He should have got a map
Yeah, yeah.
as well. You
Didn't
people
he
just
have one and throw it away?
no.
No, he
No.
probably
Well, he had
burnt it or
he
something.
had a map.
he knew how to get to
He
the
had
Stampede
a
Trail.
map that it was showing the trail because he showed the guy who gave him a ride where he wanted to go on
But-
an old map.
But we
But it
also
wasn't
the Stampede Trail was
detailed.
not marked on most maps.
But it was on the map
Because it
he
was
had.
It was on
Yeah.
the map he had.
Yeah.
So he did technically have a map, but
Yeah.
it just
yeah.
as somebody who's been camping, who's gone out in done that hundreds of times. You always let somebody know where you're going. You always have a backup plan. You're never going to outsmart Mother Nature.
But this guy was, I agree with Billy, and I think he was a narcissist. He wasn't going, nothing bad was going to happen. He's right. He's right. He's always right.
There was the one
and like that one guy, the Victorian explorer guy, I will tame nature because it will go to my will and my Victorian thinking.
I shot that guy in the back of the head and dumped him in the snow.
Sorry, you're too stupid to live.
Exactly, you're too stupid to live.
One weekend, me and a buddy, Mike Gowie, if you're out there listening, we went hiking up this in Nuevo, the mountains behind Nuevo. We were going to camp out and the second we got up to the peak, we set up our tent. We look over, giant storm coming in. All right, our little pop-up tent's not going to last. So we packed up and hiked the shit out of there. That's what you do when you know you're over your head.
Yes. And you were not by yourself. There
No,
were
I
two
wasn't.
Of you.
Later did we find out about the coyotes.
All you had to do was just pee around your tent. It came anywhere near you.
Justin has some coyotes. You should talk later.
So that was like, again, as somebody who's read, the idealized version of how to build a fire, he should have known better.
Yeah. In my car right now, as we speak, is a hard-shell plastic waterproof case filled with medical supplies and gauze and wrapping and I think like an aluminum fire blanket and supplies to build a fire if need be and a fucking Life Straw water filter. And it's in my car. I'm in a city.
Right?
I know that shit could happen, and so I want to
Justin has his bag.
I have a bag that I carry. It's very basic, but it usually has a compass, fire starters, extra knife,
All that,
safety, security blanket, signaling mirrors.
You've done more camping than I ever did.
Well,
he lived out.
I literally lived in the middle of nowhere in Detrital Valley for 13 years.
Yeah.
So
I've told Brandon before we should probably have like a to-go bag ready in
A
case
bug out bag.
something happens.
Yeah.
And again, we also we live in the city too.
I kind of disagree with the bug out bag because if the world is coming to an end, where are you going to go?
It's not so much for the end of the world.
Different book, but you filled the bathtub up with water.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, explosion.
It's not so much for the end of the world, but if
Exactly.
something happens in him, and you gotta go.
Exactly.
Like if there's a
So
fire.
where are you going to go?
No, I mean like if there's like a fire that we have to evacuate and go somewhere else. It'd be good
I'm
to have.
sorry, but if there was a fire in Hemet and people were evacuating, I would help the fire along so that way half the population would leave and the bums would go away.
You don't want that on record, David, because there are multiple fires in Hemet.
For legal reasons, he is joking. I am not joking.
Oh my gosh, David.
The statements of David are David's alone. And
Yes.
And not representative of the Bookies, which is not a gambling.
We do not agree with David's sentiment on fire and Hemet. Okay.
All right, Justin.
I don't know.
Yes, you do.
We covered
Yes, you
so
do.
much.
Words.
Remind
One of
people.
the things that, as yes, the book was well written and I enjoyed it, but some of the vocabulary
Holy cow, dude.
was just
Why would you use a
unnecessary.
10-letter college word when a simple 5-letter word would suffice that other people
You
can
know,
understand?
it just
And it's not just in the quotes, guys.
No.
If it was just the quotes from like Walden, oh my gosh, Henry David
Walden.
Thoreau is so. Oh, I had to read Walden in high school. But anyway, if it wasn't just the quotes. Like I'm like, okay, I think I know what that word is, and then they'll be like, oh, I know what that word is, but why would you use that word? Are you trying to sound smart?
He's a New York Times, or was it New York Times?
Outside Magazine, which I think is like West Coast mainly.
yeah.
Like he just wants to sound all smart and wordy, and he admits he's not as smart as McCandless, intelligence-wise. So, because he wouldn't have got that.
Smart.
No, because he wouldn't have got those. He's talking about the college classes and things like that.
Book smarts.
Book smarts, not wisdom. Intelligence and wisdom are
Intelligence,
two
not
different
wisdom.
things.
Yeah.
McCandless had intelligence, not wisdom. He had negatives in wisdom.
What was it? It was
Everything
like-
was in charisma.
Or is it like
And
intelligence is knowing that a tomato is a fruit.
Wisdom is
knowing
not putting
in
in a fruit salad.
Yes.
Absolutely. And he couldn't do something simplistic like that. No. He had to use these big college
And-
words. Ridiculous.
Granted, the man definitely had intelligence, and he was definitely talented in certain ways. You know, he was
Musically talented.
talented,
That was a big shame.
and
was a hard worker.
artistically talented. But at the same time, as I was reading this book or listening to it, in my case, my grandfather kept coming into the back of my head that says sometimes stupidity is a capital offense.
Damn, I love that.
And in some cases, yes, he was smart, but in other cases, he was just capitally stupid
He was book smart,
foolish.
with zero
and
common
foolish.
sense.
And and throughout the book, it kept irritating me. And by the end of the book, it was just a sad waste.
Yeah.
Hey, you look up idiot in the dictionary and you see Chris's picture next to it.
So many people at so many points over the course of this book offer him assistance, offer him help,
And they genuinely
at times
they
force it on
They
him.
genuinely cared for the.
Yeah.
for
He
the-
was
Because he was
Yeah.
likable.
And he's basically giving him the middle finger.
Yeah.
he just
And
I would have went, screw you, pal, get the hell out of here.
And one of the most perfect things ever said to me was actually said by you, Wayne. You gotta be gracious in accepting gifts.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's like not something that you would normally want or need or
like.
whatever. Like,
Yeah.
if someone's offering you a gift, take the damn gift and shut your mouth.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's just as much for them as it is for you.
Yeah,
Some people get great joy in giving.
yeah.
Mhm.
If it's something
Others.
that he didn't want, like money or whatever,
He can
guess
give
what?
it to someone else
Charity.
down the road. Yeah, exactly.
You're out of
He
sight.
knows the hunger
You know?
charity.
yeah, clearly
Yeah.
he knows how to give the
You
charity.
say
Maybe
thank
should have asked
you
them for some help at the end.
and move on. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Thank you for your assistance. Thank you for your words of wisdom. Then, as you walk away and out of earshot, I'm not going to do it. But you wait till you're out of
Don't
earshot.
be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk to the person who's offering you a present. You know?
Yes.
Especially ones that were as practical as some of the ones that were attempted to be given to him over the course of the book.
Shoes, coat, knife.
Multiple
Yeah.
pocket knives,
Yeah.
rubber boots, like
Go home with me, and I'll set you up with a real rifle,
yeah.
not a 22.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's it. Those gifts
Little things.
weren't just to be nice either. At least not
They
all
were
of
to
them.
keep
Most
him
of them-
alive.
Most were to keep him alive and possibly well fed while he was in the wilderness.
A satellite phone, just in case everything goes to shit and you do
Right.
need to call for
You did not have to use it at all until it got to an emergency state. Just because you take
Yeah.
a satellite phone doesn't mean,
It
oh my
doesn't-
gosh, I'm
Right.
not living off the land.
As soon as the guys that found the body were able to get through radio contact, how soon was the chopper there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
15
it,
minutes.
It was quick.
Yeah.
That's what just in case is for. Doesn't mean you have to use it every other day.
Emergency.
It's just in
Yes.
case you happen
Case
to
of
need it.
emergency, break glass.
Exactly.
Because
And-
you know he would have used it at the end, or else he wouldn't
He would
have wrote
have.
that note and put it in the window of the bus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh
He
God! When I read that note, this is going to be so judgmental on my part, but I genuinely feel like one of the only times that McCandless wrote from a state of recognizing the actual reality of the situation that he was in and just how fucked he was when he wrote that SOS note, because
Yeah.
it's something to the effect of SOS. I truly need help.
This is not a game. Please wait. If I'm out collecting
yeah.
berries, I will
Yeah.
be back. Please
In the
wait
name
for
of
me.
God,
And
please wait
help.
for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the
like-
only times
I
that
think
he is
that's when
actually.
he brought back to reality
Yeah,
and said,
yes.
Stop.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was
like,
his
oh my
moment of
God.
being-
And it's so
Yeah.
sad that that's when that happened.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Just think how his parents felt. And I thought that was very selfish.
Yeah,
of
the
him
whole
to do
time he
that.
was gone, which was what, like 2 years or something
Yeah.
like that? Like,
Yeah. For more than 2 years, they
Jesus.
didn't know where he was.
Here it is. I found it. SOS. I need your help. I'm injured, near death, and too weak to hike out of here. I am all alone. This is no joke. Underlined twice. In the name of God, please remain to save me. I am out collecting berries close by and shall return this evening. Thank you, Chris McCandless, August, ?
And it's not signed Alexander Supertramp, it's signed Chris McCandless.
Yes.
Ah.
His actual name, because he realized,
The
crap.
game was over at that point.
Yeah.
Well put.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
It wasn't a game anymore.
No.
Damn, that's really good. Yeah.
Anything else, Justin?
No, Bonnie?
I think we've all said it at this point. Well, I agreed with you on the stupid long words. Like, and I mean, I'm well read. And I actually understood a lot of it, but I'm like, there were times I was like, why that word?
I have been turned off from books with extremely long words.
It's so
for no
not
reason.
necessary. Like, you're trying to get his story to all the normal people. Normal people don't use that word.
Exactly.
Sorry. Anyway, yes, that was irritating. But I was listening to it while I was at work, so, on an earpiece, thank goodness, because there were some cussing, and I do work at a school. I did not have it on when I had students, though. Only when
It's Abraham. Why is there all that cursing?
Well, I used to work at a school, and the worst is like when you're listening to a book that has like a sex scene.
Yeah, I don't listen to those at work.
It's like, I gotta turn this one off.
I don't listen to those at work. No, I don't listen to those generally. I don't usually pick books that have that kind of stuff. But
Well, Dresden goes
every
there
now
quite
and
a
again.
bit.
Every now and again. Yeah, there's some books, but no, I don't listen to my books out loud just because. So like, I didn't know. I was like, I asked Justin. I'm like, is there cussing? He's like, sometimes. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, maybe.
Earpiece.
Yeah.
A couple words here and there.
Oh yeah, there were several. Actually, there was more
Just
than I
enough to
expected.
get you in trouble with somebody walking in.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not even going to do this podcast to tell you a story of one of the kids I work with.
All right.
Curse words. It was pretty funny.
I like when Wayne Westerberg is talking about some of the things that McCandless did. He's so practical and matter of fact about it. He's like, well, I wouldn't have gone off into the goddamn woods.
Right?
Right? And this is a guy who likes Chris.
Right? Yeah. Who was expecting him back
Yeah.
to work in the fall?
Yeah.
And I think.
That guy kind of reminded me of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that for real.
Well, the way I'm just like, no, man, you're an idiot. What the hell are you doing? Get back to work, you bum.
It
I'll
was
see you when you get back
sad. It
from
was
Alaska.
sad how it affected his parents and his family. It was sad how it affected the really old guy that wanted to adopt him.
Ron Franz.
Yeah, that was sad. But it was interesting how
He has to be dead by now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but oh my gosh,
Yeah, he was in
yes.
his 80s then.
Well, he was 80 when McCandless wrote the letter telling him to abandon his life and live on the
Right,
road, which...
And it talks about when John's talked to him, he was, because he's like in his 9th, so he'd had his 90th birthday by the time John talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking
Yeah.
about him being in his 9th decade.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think he did mention him dying in like the early 2000s. Or
Okay.
early to mid
Yeah.
early to
I
mid
don't
2000s, I
recall.
think.
but
Because
so I mean, it's sad to see how someone who was loved by so many of the people who even just barely knew him, someone who didn't even know his real name, and it's it's unfortunate, and gosh, anyway.
Just a little thing I remembered. One of the things that I thought was funny is the private investigator that was hired to search for
parents?
him.
Oh my god.
Full of leads to
Full of leads to Africa,
Europe.
and this and that, and never once came anywhere close
nowhere close.
to
Nowhere
where he
close.
was.
It took him how long to discover he donated the money?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, at one point, Krakauer mentions how when McCandless found a job at McDonald's, he used his actual name and actual social security number, and the private detective did not
Missed
find
it.
it, but Krakauer did. And at
Yep.
the moment, I'm thinking, okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying I
You're
found this
better.
as the author. Like, look at me, I did it. Like,
Yeah.
I would have done the same thing. I would have done the
Right.
same thing. I get
Yeah.
it.
This is something I
That
found.
kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
wonder. Do you think maybe the
You think the
investigator was just
investigator
jerking
was
him
just
around?
so he could get money? Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
the paycheck.
I would too. Not go
I
to
wondered
Alaska.
that, yeah.
Explain why he would go to Africa and not like Alaska. Like, okay, what evidence did you find of him going to Africa?
Well, they were a super privileged family.
Yeah.
I
Gosh.
say they were worked very hard and they spent.
Well, yeah,
some
because they
money.
came from
Yeah.
nothing. The parents came.
They were
They
poor.
They
and
worked their butts off so that
And
they
NASA
could.
engineer.
Yeah.
built their
So I don't
wealth.
want to say the kids were privileged because they were spoiled because their parents were always working and didn't really have enough
Yeah.
attention for them.
And they wanted to provide, and they did. And then, yeah. All right. Sorry. What dislikes?
Chapter 8 entitled Alaska and Chapter 9 entitled Davis Gulch. Because in these two chapters, John reviews several cases of men, mostly young, who went off into the wild and were later found dead or just vanished. So,
Yeah.
and while they did cover like 100+ years, and were in different areas that they disappeared, they made the book lag, in my opinion. I mean, I realized the author was trying to establish a precedent of men drawn to the wilderness, John Muir included, but I think that his chapters 14 and 15, where he goes to climb the Devil's Thumb, was sufficient.
Yeah.
That gave an example other than Chris, and one that closely identified with Chris, where some of these others didn't really. So
That's one of the reasons why I say I felt like it was just padding. Like,
yeah.
here are some more pages for you to read about men who've done similar things.
So the book, I just feel the book would have run a little more smoothly without those stories in it. Not that they weren't interesting, they
weren't necessary.
They weren't necessary, and I felt that they inhibited the flow and the telling of the story.
It's like he was getting paid by the word. Like, you have to have this many words, and so you had to use longer words and extra words.
Kind of like back when authors would serialize their books, like Dickens. That was one of his things. One of the reasons why he wrote so many words is because he got paid by the word. It's like,
Well, if I got paid by the word,
I would become the most loquacious person you've ever met.
Here, I made a dictionary.
Extremely verbose.
Here are all the words and their meaning.
I used every one.
But I don't know. I could see what you guys are saying about that, but I actually liked the part about how he was talking about other people that
I enjoyed
wandered
it.
around like him, and that's what I think he was trying to get at, saying,
Yeah, it was.
Chris isn't the only isolated case, and he was just giving examples of these other people that never did the
absolutely.
same thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the reason why he put that in the book. So I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the extra examples he was doing.
Oh yeah, like I said, I understand exactly
Yeah.
why he put them in there. It just, to me, that's when
You just felt
my
it was-
attention started lagging.
Yeah,
and
it was a little bit repetitive. For
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. But that was my biggest gripe.
David?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'd have to say that there were a lot of words that I didn't know the meaning of, but I blame myself for my lack of understanding on that. And I figured, yeah, I mean, I didn't really like. I mean, I liked the book, but I considered it to be a reading level above. It was a level of reading above my reading level. Let me see. Oh yeah, my second negative. I don't like Chris at all. From what I have read so far, he's nothing but a filthy hippie idiot.
Very specific.
Filthy
really
hippie
filthy.
idiot.
In
Don't be
my
shy.
opinion, it was his fault that he died because he set himself up for failure in Alaska.
You did.
Yeah, he kind of did. I mean,
they allow that perspective in the book by publishing the letters.
Alexander Supertramp, idiot. Idiot takes his Datsun off road. Idiot. Wanders around Lake Mead in July. Idiot.
I expect
Yeah,
David to
that,
be like,
that particular area, Temple Bar.
Yeah, 120 degrees. And he's
Yeah.
wandering around in there in July.
I'm waiting for Dave to call him an idiot sandwich.
I mean,
Where are you?
all the
Idiot
dude had to
sandwich.
do was take a bath, and he would have had his job at McDonald's.
Well, yeah, he would have been able to keep his job at McDonald's.
Let me see.
They weren't going to fire him. He's the one who quit.
I know, but still.
Because
That
he's an
and
idiot.
the socks.
Oh my gosh.
Why do you hate socks?
I didn't get that. I don't know. He wasn't walking around barefoot, I don't think.
But early in the book, I caught this. I don't know what people see in this Chris. Sure, he may have been a nice guy who wants to see the world, but I think he's rebelling because something happened to him when he was a kid. I wrote this very early. I mean, we're talking like page 60 of the book. I think he was abused in some way, and I wrote physically, mentally, emotionally, I don't know. And yeah, I mean, there's other various things about the other people that he met. It doesn't really matter anymore. I thought it was a waste that he could play a piano as well as he did, and he was just playing in some bar in the middle of nowhere.
He had talent that he just wasted.
I thought it was very
talent.
sad.
Well, hell, he picked up leatherworking and tooling from Ron Franz, like, after being shown, like, one time.
Yeah.
And he made a
Right?
beautiful
He made this
belt.
gorgeous belt. That's the story of his travels. And
And what I thought it pissed me off was when he said, "Okay, I'm going to be going to such and such place," and then why would you write people to let them know that you'll never hear from somebody again?
That was...
By the way, you're not going to hear from me anymore.
This is the last time you'll hear from me. He knew.
So-
That could theoretically, this is just me guessing.
Yeah.
I feel like that feeds into the narcissism. Like, oh, look at me. This is the last time you're going to hear from me.
No, I would have went F you and ripped up his postcard and thrown it away. Chump. That made me mad.
Just saying, because that feels like a very look at me kind of thing.
Narcissist, yeah, it's all about me and not about you. You suck, boy.
And I just didn't understand why you have to live like a bum to live the dream that you wanted to see the world. Why did you have to live like a bum?
He had money. He had $25,000.
That $25,000 back then would have sent him all over the country for more than 2 or 3 years.
It's enough money to give him the necessary supplies to guarantee his life. Like he barring getting hit by a car randomly in Colorado or something, he would have lived.
And one thing that made me mad was the part when they were talking about the guitar that he left in the car. Oh yeah, it was something precious.
Tramp around with a guitar.
No, it's just the thought that it was his mother's guitar. And she was raising him and teaching him songs and
he knew how to
to
play
him when he was a little baby, and he threw it away like nothing. So I'm glad that he never got that dog, because he probably would have left that dog.
No, he wouldn't have.
I think he would have, because he left everything else. Everything else.
I think I'm inclined to agree with Dave on this one. I think he might leave. Well, even if he didn't leave the dog to like die somewhere, he would have left it with somebody.
Oh, take care of my dog.
Yeah, like take my dog while I go do this.
But still,
and the dog,
he would have lost interest and thrown it away like trash, because
'Cause
he did everything else.
As we talked about, he absolutely one of the 2 things he cared about was that car. Left the car out.
Yeah, he said this thing's a piece of shit.
Yeah, and it's like,
oh
really?
He wasn't. He knew that.
And it's like, oh really? Like a week ago, you were writing sonnets about this car.
He had already driven it from East Coast to West Coast twice.
Yeah. Chris sounds like a poor loser and couldn't stand anyone being better than him. Couldn't stand criticism, and that's a shame, because he would have learned so much more. He seemed very selfish to me. If you didn't want anyone to know anything about you or your past, then why bring it up?
That's true.
I have a mysterious past that we're never going to talk about.
But it's very mysterious, I assure you.
What's that? My mysterious past, you say? Oh, I can't. There.
The past shall remain mysterious from henceforth.
I couldn't possibly. Well, I was born.
When I was born on a cold, drizzly Tuesday in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, I was like, I could hear the dog smacking into stuff, but I was like,
there's just so many other things that he did in the book that I just thought he was stupid, that I got pages and pages full of it. And I just don't see why John Krakauer even gave a shit about this guy in the first place.
because again, we mentioned it before, but there for the grace of God goes I. He was this dumb kid. He identified with the dumb kid because he had done something stupid and similar,
But survived.
So I
wouldn't have written a book. I wouldn't have written a book about it.
Here's the thing, though: when you have like an obsessive personality, like I'll get plugged. Wayne is the same way. He'll get plugged into something for a while and just go all in. It's the same thing. Like I'll get obsessed with a story or something, and I'll research it to the point to where it's like, oh, there's some, like I'm going to do something with this.
And it's easy to look at McCandless and think like, oh, he made a ton of dumb mistakes, which he did. He genuinely did. But there's a depth to him as a person in terms of his decision making too, because he goes off into the middle of nowhere to find himself, and by his own hand tries to abandon every trapping of civilization and modern society that he can. But at the same time, he's digging these holes and burying his supplies so that he can come back to them later. But he's also abandoned society, and everything is bad, and I don't want this anymore. But also, my rifle and my clothes are in a hole in the desert, and I'm gonna find them again later. Like, this is a fascinating fucking case study of how nobody is ever just one thing.
And how the hell did he bury all that shit in front of Vegas and nobody else find it?
Right? Yeah.
I'm like,
have you been outside the city limits of Vegas?
I have.
And it's not just Vegas. It's Vegas. It's the desert where he loses the Dotson. I think the book mentions
Lake Mead.
that he found Lake Mead.
Yeah, he went back and
he
got
found
stuff.
another cache of supplies he'd previously buried. I think it's before he goes on the tram after meeting Ron for the second time or something like that. Like he so often says things, but then has the wrong kind of lifelines to secure himself. Like he buries supplies that he wants to abandon, but then eventually comes back to them. Whereas if he just had proper hiking equipment, he wouldn't have had to abandon anything.
I think he just set
Right.
himself up for failure.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. Like, if he wanted to live out in the wilderness, I would have been at least prepared for it.
Yeah.
That was just stupid.
I think he set himself up for failure, but I'm not sure he consciously did it.
Yeah, no, I think it was an accident. I think his intentions were genuine, but he had zero forethought necessary to properly follow through with them.
I feel like he couldn't differentiate between
Fantasy
living
and reality.
but
Back
living
to
between
fiction,
between living a simple life and being prepared. To him, those were not two separate things. He couldn't be prepared and live a simple life, I felt, because of all the things he refused to accept as gifts, because of all the, oh no, I don't need that. No, it's like, okay, look, dude, you need something warmer than what you got on right now. I understand wanting to live a simple life, but you also got to be prepared. There's a difference between being prepared and not being
Being an idiot.
materialistic. You can be prepared and not be materialistic at the same time,
Yeah.
There's also a major difference between camping out in the desert and camping out in Alaska.
Most definitely.
There's a whole different set of skills, a whole different set of supplies.
Yeah.
I've never been camping in Alaska, and I've heard horror stories, modern horror stories.
And we've read To Build a Fire too.
Yes, I have.
Exactly. Camping
And
in
olive
a
oil.
desert
Yeah.
is different than camping in the rainforest, which is different than camping in the snow. In Alaska and harsh, all these places take, like you guys said, unique skills that may not necessarily cross over. Some of it might, some of it won't. It's just that simple. You can't just take the same things you would in the jungle and say, okay, let's go to Alaska now, that kind of thing.
But I mean, he survived however long it was.
110 days?
No,
Is that what it was?
down in Mexico, along the Gulf of Mexico, with
Oh,
a
yeah.
20-pound bag of rice and whatever he
And a
pulled from
fishing
the sea.
pole.
Which you could do there at
And
that
you
time
can
of
do
year.
that there.
Getting
But in
lost
his
in the
brain,
canals.
well,
Well, I did it
it
there. I
worked
could do it
here,
everywhere.
it'll work in Alaska.
Mhm.
Well,
His brain
no,
doesn't work right.
Alaska is a different environment.
Oh, most definitely.
The human body burns twice as many calories in a cold environment.
Okay, we're moving where it's colder. I need to lose weight.
I'm right
Well, I
there
hear
with you.
Alaska's nice.
No,
The salmon
There's
fishing.
shelter waiting for you.
I'm good.
No, it's not. The bus is gone now. Actually,
Oh, it
that's
is
that's a fun fact. The
Aw.
Fairbanks City Transit System bus number 142, aka bus 142, the McCandless bus, for a long time still remained in the place that he lost his life in it, and it became something of a pilgrimage site for people who, like McCandless, wanted to find something in the woods. They would go there. At least 2 people died in their attempt in crossing the Teclanica River. And it got to the point where in 2020, mid-COVID, like July, a joint operation between like the military branches up there and the University of Alaska at Fairbanks, they as a training operation, they helicopter lifted the bus out of where it was, and now it actually permanently resides at the University of Alaska Fairbanks Museum of the North.
So people won't die.
So people won't die trying to go to it. It's a pilgrimage site now, and they know that. And it's in the middle of like a years-long operation to conserve what is there as far as cultural artifacts, like McCandless's graffiti, and also restore things that aren't cultural artifacts, like bullet holes that have been shot into it. Like the legacy that McCandless left behind has affected and will continue to affect a ton of people.
Will I go there? No.
Probably not.
So, all right, I guess final thoughts?
And recommendations.
Yeah.
I do recommend reading this book. It has been a fascination of mine for a long, long time now, ever since I first read it. And I do think it's important to strive for the kind of life that you think would benefit you the most, as in like the thing that McCandless wanted to do. But there is no point in trying to build that kind of life for yourself if you lose your life in the process. Because then you've just wasted all your efforts and time and now you're dead. That's my final thought.
I will say I agree. Go ahead and read it if this is the kind of book you're into. I will not say it wasn't a bad book. It wasn't a bad read or anything. I think part of it was just it wasn't my kind of book, which there's nothing wrong with that. And I guess, I just have to sort of echo what Lou said. If you're going to do something potentially dangerous, please be prepared.
Don't be monumentally stupid.
I mean, like, research the heck out of whatever it is, whether it's climbing a mountain, doing what he did, going to Alaska, whatever it is. Please just make sure you're prepared. Do your research and let somebody know where you're going, please. Just and say, give them a date. Like, if you don't hear me back from me by this date, then maybe something's gone wrong.
That's Mountaineering 101.
So that's all I'd say.
That's called Survival 101.
Right? Doesn't matter where you're going, if it's the ocean or the mountain or a desert, just be prepared, please. I don't want to read a book about you, whoever's listening, because that would be
Jeremy Irons singing in my head.
Be prepared.
Um,
Except for the very last bit was actually
I've
sung
been
by Jim
hearing that all
Cummings.
evening.
I was just saying, I've heard that it wasn't really Jeremy Irons.
It was Jeremy Irons through most of it, except for the last bit was Jim Cummings.
Okay.
Because something
true.
happened and he couldn't finish the song.
So, final thoughts. I saw the movie years ago before ever reading the book. The movie hides the fact that he died until the end.
Spoiler alert.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
the movie is a much different experience because you're sitting
Is it
there.
chronological order?
It's in chronological order, and you're kind of rooting for this guy. And if you don't know, you don't know. I didn't know.
That is fascinating.
So the
That's
movie.
horrible.
So the movie is a much different experience that I vaguely remember from 15 years ago. I liked the movie. Now that I've read the book, it's interesting because the book doesn't hide it, doesn't try to hit you with a bam at the end or a surprise. So I think that's just the differences is kind of interesting.
It doesn't odd Thomas you.
No. The other thing is at the afterward when the parents go to visit the bus. That kind of hurt. And I have a rocky relationship with my father, and but with the mom leaving supplies for campers,
Right?
and
That was a beautiful moment. Like the
call your this is what they would have liked to have had for what they wish they could have done for their son. It's a beautiful moment, and I
wonder if
think
she left a satellite phone.
I think they left a first aid kit.
So it was a first aid kit and Chris's Bible from when he was a kid.
The Bible and the note, call your parents.
Yeah. Be an idiot.
And some food that like candy goods, like
Yeah.
would last for a while.
Present memories, maybe this last decade.
Well, that's kind of my final thoughts.
I would say it's a book worth reading.
Yeah.
And also, I noticed that there is another book that was written by his sister,
Oh,
The Wild Truth by Karen McCandless, with a foreword by John Krakauer. And it goes into domestic violence and stuff like that. So there may be some other reasons as to why he did what he did.
That was what you would thought.
And but
I caught that immediately.
yeah, so I would recommend it, especially if you want to know what not to do when you go into Alaska.
Anywhere, really.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, there's also a book called Back to the Wild, which is just straight up McCandless's pictures and journal entries and his writings collected in one volume, like about the trip itself, Like I would read both.
Oh,
of those
like
books.
his journal and stuff.
Yeah, like his act.
I would
yeah.
like to.
Yeah.
That I'd be interested in reading his actual journal.
I
We got
think the dude is a nut.
we got pieces of it,
bits
but
and pieces
it
of
would
it,
have
yeah.
been neat to get the whole thing.
Please don't put that in.
Oh, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. No, but just personally, I'd want to read
Yeah.
it. Just
Got it, Bonnie? Please don't put that in the
hey,
container.
Bonnie has quite a beard, I must say.
right?
That's
Hey,
my beard.
that's Louis.
That is me.
I'm Bonnie. This wasn't
I know,
Maze
I was
Runner. It
talking
was
to you.
better written.
one thing that popped up that I just remembered was amongst
I know,
his,
I was talking to you, but I was talking to him.
amongst his books, because it talked about like the books he had when he passed away. There was a Louis L'Amour book. In
I know.
there.
I saw that.
I
was
caught
like,
that. I was like,
that's a good
There's
book.
also Michael
Michael Crichton book.
yeah.
book.
Yeah, books he'd enjoy. Yeah.
He had those in his library and didn't survive.
Yeah, I mean,
He was reading them.
Bookies.
the characters in Louis L'Amour have more sense than
He was reading the right stuff, which is just infuriating.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good read. I would recommend reading it. I don't know. I'd probably give it a 6. Probably. Maybe a 7. I mean, I actually,
7.
yeah, probably more than 7. It was well written.
It was a 7 because of the reading level for me.
Yeah.
It was above my reading level.
There were sections that I really enjoyed, so yeah, you're right. It's probably a 7. 6 would be low, but it's better than Maze Runner.
It's better than Maze Runner.
All right, go ahead.
My buddy Dennis saw the movie, and he knew nothing about it.
Oh,
And so
That's kind of mean, honestly.
that's awful.
And so he's, enjoying this movie, the story, and then finds out the guy dies in the end.
Same.
And he's
I would
like,
have walked out of there like, this is bull.
I know.
so I mean, like, this my copy of the book right here, national bestseller, John Krakauer, Into the Wild, and then it's got a paragraph. And the final sentence is 4 months later, his decomposed body was found by a moose hunter, ... Right on the cover,
There's no mistaking it.
Yeah.
We
when
know
you
ahead
get
of
into
time.
this, you know
This kid
from
died.
the cover
Yeah.
what's going to happen. And the movie was done in chronological order, where the story was not.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I did just to help me was
See, if I made the movie, I would have started with an interview with the parents. Why? What? Where did he go? Family. Or sister. He could have just written me or something. And then go back. Like,
They're
what happened? You know what I
hardly
mean?
in the
Like,
movie.
no. But that's how I would have started it with the real. Okay, it's been this many months since his body was found, and start there and then backtrack everything in retrospect. Not punish the audience.
You don't know he's dead until the end.
So not
Yeah. But I found Cliff's Notes version,
Yeah.
or about this book online.
Cliff who?
Mr.
Notes.
His name is Notes.
It says right in the title. Yeah. And so one of the first things that they did is they had the events of the story laid out in chronological order.
Oh.
And I sat down and I copied that
So you had it
in my notes.
Well, the book does bounce around. It would have been
because
that'd be interesting to see.
because it helps me remember things to write it down as I read it.
Right.
So I copied that down in the chronological order, and there were several aha moments for me in doing that, because the way everything was so jumbled, I didn't realize this happened before this in several instances. And then the other thing that it had was a list of the names of all the people that he came in contact with in his family, and a sentence or three about each one. And I wrote all that down to help keep who's who straight in my head. So out of the 14 pages of notes that I took, the last two pages were my only notes on the story. But I would rate it a 7 out of 10, and worth reading, but read the cover so you know what you're getting into.
He died. Know that ahead of time.
I wonder if other versions of the book have that on the cover as well.
I don't know.
Because it's in the opening pages, but also
it's all on the cover.
Yeah, this particular one, it was on the cover.
I mean, it's on the blurb on Amazon about the book, but
I mean, they don't hide it. The movie hides it.
Movies don't.
Because you're rooting for the kid, and then you think it's getting scary at the bus, and you're like, oh well, how's he gonna get out of this? He doesn't. Like, the movie's a little rough. I remember being kind of disappointed.
Yeah. All right, David. Final thoughts.
I would say I'd give it a 7, just because, like I said, because of the reading level. I recommend reading it to learn what not to do with your life. Other than that, I really don't have very much to say. And my opinion of Chris wasn't that high.
No, we know. All right.
That's it.
All right. Lewis's book. So.
Okay.
That's what we've been doing.
Well, good one.
Break open the top of the TARDIS.
Pick a good one.
Let me see here. Oh wait, I got two. Okay. Alrighty, the book for next time
Put it back,
is The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende, suggested by Maylene.
All right.
Never-ending story.
I remember seeing pictures of him and the princess 30 years later or something.
Because you haven't seen the movie. He hasn't seen the movie. We'll read the book first, then watch the movie.
Yeah,
Don't watch it.
I want to know what you think about just the book, because we've all seen the movie.
I grew up with that movie.
Apparently not all of us.
I've only seen a piece here to piece there. Never seen the whole thing.
Also, don't watch Stranger Things season 3, I think.
We shouldn't finish that season. We just started that one. Okay.
Watch the movie first.
Yeah.
They don't spoil anything, but they
It's not a
reference.
spoiler, but you miss a lot.
Yeah.
Why?
It references.
It references the movie a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
In
Oh,
a
the Never-Ending
beautiful
Story?
in a
Yeah.
beautiful scene.
Yeah.
All right, so
The Never-Ending Story.
that's it.
All right, we're the Bookies.
Bookies,
Bye.
Better than
So
Maze
long.
Runner.
Don't be
Don't
stupid,
go to
stupid.
Alaska.
So there you have it, Into the Wild by John Krakauer. I'm sorry, man. If you ever listen to this podcast, I butchered your last name so many times. I feel like I owe you a personal public apology. So I feel bad about that. But hey, our next episode is The Never-Ending Story. With a special guest, Bonnie's sister Sarah. longtime fan of Never Ending Story, and it's one of her personal favorites. She is joining us. She was also an author. If you go back and if you've ever read any of our 8-bit pulp anthologies of short stories, Sarah was the author of several stories, usually in a spy theme. That was what the genre she wrote for. With that said, I want to thank you. If you want to support this podcast, A, you can always buy any of our books. B, you can go to patreon.com/destinycomics, where you can get bookmarks and other book paraphernalia in order to support that book habit. I hope I hope you enjoy these podcasts. We enjoy making them. So until next time, same book channel, same book time.